Erica and Sharon are sisters who began their grief journey in 2006 when Erica's 10-year-old son Austin drowned. Together, they participated in a grief education program, were so moved by this experience, they studied and became specialists so they could help the brokenhearted find recovery. In 2015, tragedy struck their family once again when Erica's oldest son Donovan was killed in a motorcycle accident. Erica and Sharon are committed to sharing their experiences of love, loss, and healing through this podcast. Now your grief specialists, Sharon and Erica.
Hey friends, welcome back to Healing Starts with the Heart, the show where it's all about you, the griever, and your broken heart. My name is Sharon, and this is my sister Erica, and we are grief specialists. But I want to tell you something. We were grievers first. We were grievers first, and we walked this journey before you, and we know what it feels like to have a broken heart. But then we decided we needed to give back, and we went and trained and became grief specialists, and that's what we're offering to you today. Right, Erica?
Absolutely. I think it's so important that people understand, and that's why we keep trying to do more shows like this so that they can really get to know us and hear about where we started, and that it wasn't easy. We made a lot of mistakes along the way. We had a lot of bad information when we first started, but once we did find grief recovery and we had such a positive, life-changing experience, that we really committed to getting this message out here and wanting to help other grievers.
Yeah, and it's been so rewarding. One, because we can see the change. We can see the change that happens in the grievers. You and I can see it happening. We know that around week 4, all of a sudden they come in and they start telling jokes and they smile a little bit, but then they can go back to their life in a different way. So it is really cool. So the show we have planned for today is called Grief is Cumulative.
Grief is Cumulative.
Yeah. I knew what it was. I was thinking of it. It has a subtitle too, though, but it's Grief is Cumulative, and it's cumulatively negative. It completely builds upon itself, and it's negative. So what does that mean to you, grief is cumulative?
To me, it means that even though you've experienced a traumatic event, it's not just about that event.
Yeah. Yeah. It means that even though you come to grief recovery and you sit with us and you're coming in here for the death of your husband, that a lot of times what we do look at, and it's so important for us to do, I think sometimes that the grievers are actually shocked that we do this, but we start to look at all the losses in their life, because not only is that death going to cause the grief, but all of that pain from years and years and years past will also come up.
Right. One of the visuals we use when we try to get people to understand this concept is the backpack.
Yeah.
Imagine here you get a backpack in kindergarten, and you're filling that backpack up with rocks, and each rock is a grieving experience.
Yeah.
So from 5 to 50, imagine how heavy that backpack is with pain from all those grieving experiences.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I was bullied in elementary school. I had broken up with a boyfriend when I was 18. I had grandparents die. I had an aunt who passed away. I had a cousin who was killed tragically in a car accident. I had a daughter who had fallen off of a truck. I had a nephew who died when he was 10. I had a father who was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I had a husband who had a heart attack. I built a house, which was a grieving experience, because when that project ended, I had nothing left to do. And then I lost a best friend. Those are just a few things that were in my backpack.
Right.
Those were just a few rocks that I was carrying around day in and day out. Now I've extended past the grief recovery time, but those are just examples. The reason I wanted to do this show is because, Erica, one of the things that you and I know, we're working with a woman right now that has had her husband has passed away. But now she's realized she's also grieving a bunch of stuff from her mom. And all of that stuff that's showing up for her with her mom is now another area that we have to grieve before we can even get to the husband part, because that part is so thick and so heavy. And I think a lot of people think they're just going to come to grief or grief support, and I'm only going to deal with this part.
Right. Or they think that they've found a way, because they might participate in some other therapy or some other support group, and they feel like, oh, I've worked through that, not even realizing that there's still all these other rocks left in their backpack that's still causing them to feel like they're not living a really fulfilled life. You know, it's holding them back from experiencing real joy.
Right. And you share this quite often when we're teaching, is that you will feel it tugging at your heart like a heartstring. If you mention that story or you mention that person and you feel it absolutely right here in your heart, that is an area that is incomplete for you. You know that it's an area. So I share this story quite often. I had grieved my father after he passed away, but some months later, I remembered this moment, and that was this, that when he went on hospice, when the nurse came, you know, Daddy was really welcoming, and he welcomed everyone in. And so when the nurse came in, he was, where are you from, and how many kids do you have? And he was asking her all these questions, and he was filling out the paperwork. And then that night, he called me back in the room. He's like, Sharon, because he would call me just like that, real short. And he was like, what was she here for? And I said, well, and I started explaining him what hospice was and how he was going on hospice. And he looked at me, and in the saddest voice and in the lowest voice, he said, no, I'm not ready for that. And I said, yeah, I talked to Yolanda, and we really think it's time. But he really was resistant to that. Anyway, long story short, months later, that memory came back to me. And that 100% pulled a heartstring for me. It was an area that I was like, I still needed to work on. I still needed to go back and look at that area and work on that, because it was heavy for me.
And that, I think that because we really break down all the different parts of our personal experiences and journeys, we're able to hopefully help people identify where there's still work that's left to be done.
Yeah. And when we say that it's cumulative and cumulatively negative, what does the normal, typical person try to do when they don't know what to do with this pain in their heart? They go after eating, drinking, sex, pornography, sleeping, isolating, video games. I'm going to do whatever I can to get away from this pain. I want this pain to stop now, and I'm going to use whatever vice I can.
Or just avoid it completely, just like not even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
We had an experience. I met a man this weekend, and he is divorced. And I was sharing with him the information about the podcast. And he goes, oh, no, I'm totally over it. But I want to share it with this lady. And everyone always says that they give you another person who needs it, but not them. But throughout the weekend, he constantly, in whatever situation he could, brought up his divorce. And it was all negative emotion. It was like, like bitter, and then she did this. And I just personally to myself was like, oh, honey, you are not nowhere near over this.
Yeah.
Because that's another way it shows up. If you're constantly talking about it in the negative, and it's really, you're reliving that emotional that you felt in those moments, it's still there.
Absolutely, it's still there. And then you and I have seen people take the negative response to that divorce, and they take it to their next relationship. Now that relationship starts to go bad or gets bitter. Guess what comes up for them? You were just like my first wife, and you were just like you. She used to do this to me, and she used to do that to me. Because we know for a fact that even on a little simmer, right, a teapot will start to boil. Well, what's in that teapot but all that pain? And so once that boiling water gets going and that new wife says something, bam, we shoot off with all of the hurts and pains from before.
Right. So true.
And Erica, sometimes we're not even realizing that the pain and aggravation that we're bringing into the new marriage was from the marriage before.
No, you don't realize it. You just, because you react so fast emotionally with whatever the emotion is, you're not making the connection. You just go right into the emotion of it and into the argument or into the avoidance and, all that. You don't allow yourself the time to really process the information.
Right, right. Which, you know what, is really unfair. It's really unfair to the new relationship for you to bring in all this stuff, but it's really sad in the sense that sometimes you don't even know you're bringing that in. Sometimes you don't even know you're bringing that into the new relationship. So what we mostly wanted to share with you is that grief can stick together. And it grows in your heart like the blob. I always say this. It grows in your heart like the blob. It's not just, I got my little kitty that died, or my little doggy that died, or my son has passed away, or I got a divorce. It's all of those things together.
Yeah. I remember one client specifically that I almost gasped out loud when she was sharing with me, because she came to me for the loss of her husband who passed away from cancer. But one of her first memories was when she was 4 years old, walking in on her mother attempting to take her life in the bathtub.
Yeah.
And that, when she shared that story, and how, the emotion that came with it, the tears and the ugly cry, as we were talking, was nowhere near on the level that, when she would share about her husband who had passed. So it's like you have to look at places where people start their grief journey, and then how many rocks have been added to that backpack since. So that was her first rock at 4 years old. Everything else that has just created this blob in her heart was almost suffocating her.
Absolutely. And what about the people that don't get a chance to talk about that, or they don't share it? They don't share it because they don't have a safe place to share it, right? That's another way that it becomes cumulative. I didn't get to share what happened to me in my young years, my toddler years, my elementary school years, and then my junior high school years, and it just keeps going on. That's the backpack that we're talking about that you're carrying on, and then you have a devastating loss in your life. It all comes back. We grieve exactly how we lived. We grieved exactly like who we were. And all of this comes flooding back. So it's not uncommon for you and I to have someone sitting in front of us who's just had a recent divorce, but we may be grieving something from their childhood. First.
Oh my gosh, not uncommon at all. And I think about all the time when you and I are talking, or we're putting together programs and working with new clients, is I have no idea where I would be if I had never gotten the recovery I needed on Austin and then had Donovan die.
Oh.
I don't even know who I would be.
Oh, yeah.
I think about that. I would not be who is sitting right here having this conversation with you right now.
Man. Oh, man. Because Austin would have come flooding back. All the pain
completely.
from Austin would have come flooding back. And how do you hold that down?
Right. I think that I would be, I probably would be on medication.
Yeah.
This is what I think sometimes. I would be on medication. I don't know if I would be able to, attend to detail, because you know how you go into that fog when you're grieving.
Yeah.
So I think that I would probably be like that weird kind of ADD, zombie, medicated. I have no idea who I would be. That's just what I envision when I think about it, because I would be in so much pain, I wouldn't be able to function.
Right. But what would your story be? You'd be stuck in that story. You'd be that person.
Every opportunity, I would be bringing up something about Austin or something about Donovan where it didn't even relate, but I would just be wanting to talk about them and trying to find ways to bring them up in every scenario possible.
Yeah. Yeah. As opposed to who you are now. Who are you now, recovered? What is it like?
Who I am now is, yes, I do still share quite a bit of stories about them. And I do talk about them a lot, but I'm not laughing, but it's just, I might be kind of, I am sharing those stories because I want to help, and I want to help connect people, and I want to just get people to see that I understand. So I have a clear heart. There is no pain. There are no heartstrings being
Yeah.
pulled when I'm sharing my story.
Yeah.
I just really want to put it out there to let people know I've been where you've been. I've walked in your shoes, but this is where I am now.
Yeah.
So come and talk to me so I can help you
Yeah.
be where I'm at.
Yeah. That is so cool. It's sort of like you share it all the time. You guys are living your best life. You're living it now
Yeah.
as a family unit, traveling, teaching grief recovery. We're meeting grievers all over the place, and it's just amazing. And we're so blessed. We are all so blessed to have grief recovery and to be able to share it with other people.
Right.
Friends, thank you so, so much. Erica, tell our friends where they can find us.
They can find us on our website at healingstartswiththeheart.com. They can email us at sisters@healingstartswiththeheart.com. We are on Facebook under that same name, healingstartswiththeheart.com. And if they are lucky enough to find the podcast, which I hope they are, we're on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. But please don't forget to subscribe, because we need that to keep this out there and keep this going.
Absolutely, 100%. You can also find us on YouTube at Sharon and Erica with healingstartswiththeheart.com. We have some great videos there. We'd love to share those with you. You can find the TEDx video that we did there. Also, Erica, I want to let our friends know that they can set up a mini session with us if they want to talk about the cumulative pain that's in their heart. And because school has just gone back in and it's so busy, we only have 3 sessions a week. So please try to grab one of those as quickly as you can. Sit with Erica and I. We will go over cumulative pain with you. We would be honored to do that with you. Friends, thank you so much for allowing us in for this few short minutes. We hope that some of what we shared was helpful to you today.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.